Today's adventure takes us to Lynchburg, Tennessee.
So grab a glass and tag along. What you got there, Andy, too?
I got a couple of tickets for a tour.
There have been many people that say, I belong on a short bus. They was right.
Yes, they were.
We're heading for the rick yard. We get off the bus, we walk our way back. It's a third of a mile walk. Take us an hour and a half to do this. Couple things, folks. There's no smoking on this tour. E or otherwise, you can take pictures anywhere you like, except inside a couple big buildings. This will be a safety thing. We're going to pay attention to that, aren't we?
Sir, yes, sir!
Cell phones are officially banned on this tour. But I know people quit carrying cameras. You take good pictures with your cell phone. If you can keep from doing this, on my tour, I'll look the other way. Got a deal?
Sir, yes, sir!
All right, this ain't Disneyland. We're going through a place to be hot and noisy and smelly. Y'all need to know that. Y'all stay with me out here. Do not walk away from a tour guide. Ooh, that big no-no. You get away from me. Listen, security is watching this tour. They'll be on you like a rat on a Cheeto, and their tour ain't as good as mine. We got 400 people working here, and on the first Friday of every month, the company sees fit to give to every employee. We all get that little 1-pint bottle, Black Label Old Number 7, do with what we will. I drink mine. Frank, what do we call that first payday every month?
Good Friday.
Good Friday. One religious and 12 spiritual Good Fridays every year. They're taking that new Jack Daniel Tennessee honey, mix it with chocolate, making fudge out of it. The Tennessee Fire, that's the whiskey cinnamon, making candy out of that. There's a commodity you can buy on our square at our gift shop, other place about this big, called Tipsy Cake. Around here, y'all gonna have to learn to eat responsibly. Folks, when that new whiskey comes off the stills, it's clear. That raw spirit looks like water, got no color, very little flavor. Put that into a charred oak barrel, let it sit in that barrel for a number of years. These big barns you roll the barrels into, they're called barrel houses, 7 stories tall. 20,166 barrels of whiskey's in that building. That gives you over 1 million gallons of whiskey, folks. There's no floors in that barrel house. It's all just a bunch of racks. We roll them barrels onto all them racks. We fill that whole thing up, we hang the lock on the door, and we wait 4 years. Come back in 4 years to taste the whiskey in that barrel. And our tasters will say, yes, it's ready. Sometimes they say, no, leave it longer. Most of what we do, folks, in the barrel about 4 years. Folks, it's a common sight to see a turkey on our tour. If y'all happen to see one today, you need to know that could be about the only wild turkey you'll see in Lynchburg, I'll guarantee you that. Corporate spies. Folks, Brother Frank just did a pretty good job getting us up here all safe and timely. Everybody kindly say, thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Frank. Hey, a great big thank you, Frank.
You're welcome. Y'all picked a nice day for doing this, now didn't you?
Absolutely.
Every day's a blessing, folks. Hope you understand that. I'd like y'all to please be careful out here walking around. Be mindful of where you're walking. Watch where you're walking. Do not fall down and break your leg. It's an order. I see the rick yard from here. Let's head on down. Who knows what a rick is? He said it. Rick is a stack of wood. It's a measure of wood. You peek around this tour, you see we got us a bunch of ricks of hard sugar maple. This wood comes from the uplands of Tennessee. Folks, a cord of wood gives you about 2 ricks. We take 4 of these ricks and we stack them under these big burn chimneys that the EPA helped us design. And we burn this wood down, folks. What we're doing here, we're making our own charcoal to mellow our whiskey with. It's a very expensive process. There's only 2 distilleries in the whole world goes all this trouble and expense making whiskey. Now folks, just yesterday morning, right after daybreak, right before we threw the match on that wood to light that fire, we squirted the wood with a liquid, make it take off burning hot and fast. This liquid is not gasoline, it's not kerosene or lighter fluid or petrol, folks. That stuff would leave a nasty flavor in your whiskey. We squirt it down with 140 proof, and that means 70% raw whiskey straight off our stills. If you would kindly give me a single file right across here, hold your hand out thusly. I'm going to squirt some of this stuff on your hand.
Did you want to lick my fingers?
Sure.
Put that charcoal up to your nose and sniff on it, and you're invited to do so now if you wish. Once you understand, you'll be smelling on that charcoal. You're going to figure out real quick that you ain't going to smell nothing, is you? No. You will not smell a thing. No. We don't add nothing into our whiskey when we drip our whiskey through that charcoal. Folks, that charcoal, that is nature's perfect filtering medium. And it removes corn oil, esters, and fatty acids, and chemicals, and compounds, and stuff that you're going to find in most other whiskeys. Folks, that charcoal, that makes it Tennessee sipping whiskey. You fella wearing them hats there help show a little respect. We take the threat of fire real serious around here. Got our own fire brigade. Got the big pumper trucks, the ladder trucks, the foam shooting cannon, 30 young and strong men and women. Never had a big fire here, hope we never do. The threat of financial loss from a fire in this industry is astronomical. Got some retired fire equipment here. Folks, that's a 1919 American LaFrance, Elmira, New York, chain drive, gravity carburation. On the other side there's a 1928 REO Speed Wagon. Grab a rock, have a seat here. Sit right down. Now, you feel a little bit now, let me tell you something. You come back and you take this tour in the middle of July. You got 98 degrees right here and you sit on one of these rocks, buddy. It is unbelievable. And Jack was a hard-working kid, folks. When he was 7 years old, he moved in with a local Lutheran minister named Dan Call. And Jack learned how to make whiskey working on his preacher's still. Reverend Call had an enslaved man working for him. His name was Nathan Nearest Green. Jack worked side by side with Nearest Green on the Call farm, and he got to helping out Nearest making whiskey on Dan Call's still. And it was during this time that Jack determined he's going to be a whiskey making fella himself. And folks, when Jack was 16 years old in 1866, 153 years ago, he moved that little still. He moved it right here. He moved it here because of the water that issues from this spring. Folks, Jack Daniel discovered this water makes for some pretty good whiskey. It's iron free, and this is why we're all still located right here today. In recorded history, this spring has never gone dry. Get up there, put your arm around Jack. Give a big old smooch, take a picture. Probably a good one. That's the last known photograph of Jack Daniel right there. This is the only picture that ever shows Jack with gray or white hair. The figure is picture made around 1895, which is 20 years after this office was built. Folks, quality's always been so easy for us to hit here, and this is why. This is such a small town. Children grow up in this community with everybody working here. Kids will learn how to make whiskey, even before they show up for work. Generations. We're so proud to report to you, the Green family here at the very beginning. The Green family is still working here today. Over the years, we've had other head distillers. There's the top dog in the holler today. That's Jeff Arnett. He's a big boy today. Here he is, folks, Jasper Newton Daniel. Now, he born in 1850, the 10th of 10 children. Folks, there's a safe behind these young people. In that very spot, that steel safe is what killed Jack Daniel. He come into work early one morning. Lem was not here yet. Jack fiddled with that combination right there, and he could not get it right. He got angry. Temper. He kicked the door of the safe. He broke his big toe. Well, folks, Jack didn't tell anybody. Now, he used a cane for a couple months and that toe got infected real bad. Gangrene. Had to cut off his toe. Over the year, there were more operations until 6 years after Jack kicked that safe. He died of that infection, folks. He was 61 years old. This in 1911. There's folks around town will tell you that if Jack had soaked his sore limb in a bucket of that 140 proof whiskey coming off of his little still, it might very well have cured that infection. Now we're using 3 grains to make our whiskey. We're using corn, barley malt, and rye.
Unfortunately, they will not allow our cameras inside of the still house. So we'll upload some Jack Daniel public access footage and hear from the master distiller himself. Andy 2, take it away.
150 trucks a week come through the distillery carting grain for the whiskey.
About 1 million pounds of grain a day that's being unloaded and elevated into our silo.
Jack Daniel is a sour mash whiskey, which means that some of the spent grains from previous batches are used to start fermentation on a new batch.
What that means is basically that you recycle some of your distillate.
The spent grains are added to the ground corn in cave spring water, then cooked in a mash cooker.
The mash cookers are basically heating up the grains, cooling them back down, and then setting them into the fermenter.
As the temperature cools, rye is added, and then barley malt along with Jack Daniel's own strain of yeast.
The yeast that we use today is the one that we've had since Prohibition.
Yeast in the mash will sit in the fermenting tank for 4 to 6 days.
Okay, this fermenter was set approximately 3 hours ago. You can see how this one is starting to actively bubble.
After several hours, the yeast really gets rolling, not from the heat, but from the yeast reacting on the water in the grain.
It takes each one of those molecules and splits it kind of 50-50 between a CO2 molecule and an ethanol molecule, or whiskey.
After the yeast has done its work, a liquid with about 12% alcohol content is transferred to a copper still for distillation.
What you're doing inside a distillation column is just taking advantage of the fact that alcohol will become a vapor.
At the right temperature, alcohol will turn to vapor, but the excess water will remain liquid.
You want to be hot enough that you can vaporize the alcohol, but not so hot that you're also making steam from the water.
The vaporized alcohol is transferred and cooled back into a liquid. This time, the alcohol content is at a full 140 proof.
And then all you're going to do is collect that off into your condenser.
Next, the condensed whiskey is passed through charcoal, as we described earlier in this episode.
What the charcoal does is filter the fusel oils and corn oils out of the whiskey. When it goes out the bottom of this 10 foot of this charcoal is 140 proof Jack Daniel's Tennessee whiskey.
These vats are made of white oak. The charcoal is changed out at least every 6 months.
It takes 4 to 5 days before the whiskey for it to go from the top to the bottom.
What separates this Tennessee whiskey from bourbon is that bourbon doesn't undergo charcoal mellowing.
A bourbon goes from the still to the barrel to the warehouse. Tennessee whiskey goes from the still through the charcoal to the barrel and then the warehouse.
We're the only whiskey maker in the world that makes their own barrel. There's over 1,000 whiskey distilleries. We're the only one making our own barrels. We're doing extra stuff out barrel. These other guys, they ain't doing. We're getting more flavor, more quality out of the barrel, out of the wood, and into the whiskey. It is all about barrel.
Like the vats, the barrels are made of American white oak. They're constructed at a cooperage in Louisville, Kentucky. The barrels are formed from cut and planed wood. The wood is steamed so it's pliable, then it's shaped. The whiskey's color and a lot of its flavor comes from the barrels themselves.
The barrel is a key ingredient in the making of whiskey, and it's why Jack Daniel's makes all of its own barrels.
The right char takes about 20 to 25 seconds.
Picture a marshmallow at a campfire being held just above the top of a flame. Slowly it starts to turn brown. Slowly the sugar and flavors and the color changes on the surface of the marshmallow.
The heads of the barrels are assembled and cut to size. And they're charred as well. Heads are added to the barrels. And then hoops are put on.
We have a head hoop, quarter hoop, and a bilge hoop. So each barrel receives 6 hoops, 2 of each of those.
Then bung holes are drilled. Once a barrel makes it onto the truck bound for Lynchburg, it'll be filled with whiskey within a week before the wood starts to dry out and shrink.
I took the filler lance in the bung hole and start the whiskey flow.
Each barrel holds about 56 gallons, and it takes about a minute to fill.
Now take a wooden bung, place over the hole. With one hit, you put the bung in the barrel.
The barrels will sit for 4 to 7 years to age before being bottled.
And then they are bottled, packed, and wrapped, and on their way to a liquor store near you.
And we're going to start off right now, folks, with our nose. Your nose is a big part of tasting. Whether you're tasting good food, you're tasting wine, you're tasting spirit, folks, your nose can pick out over 130 different aromas. If you ain't sniffing, you're not going to get the taste. Your nose is much more important than your mouth is. So, grab that gentleman Jack, start sniffing. Soft whiskey. You think of the word whiskey and the characteristics that jumps into your head. The harsh, the bite, the heat. Reality. But because of the vanilla, people are cooking with this. Do you like to bake? Here's what's going to happen. You're going to get a flash of sweet on your tongue, front to back. It's going to feel a little hot going in. Like everything we do, we start with black label. In that black label, we infuse honey, blackstrap molasses. It got praline in it, got a real nutty flavor to it. It's very, very sweet. Who's from up north? Got Michigan, Wisconsin? Hey, put a tablespoon of this in your pancake batter. Sweet tea? You like sweet tea? Hey, good. Jack Daniel Tennessee Fire. This is the whiskey cinnamon thing. You know the little cinnamon red hots, those candies, buddies? We have the flavor of them dialed in perfect here. The recipe is so simple. Folks, it's black label whiskey, it's cinnamon, and the sweetener which is sugar, 70 proof, folks. Cheers!
Cheers! Cheers, babe.
Everybody grinning and laughing. What's up with that? Gotta tell y'all, 5 weeks ago, I'm up there. I'm doing this. Got a 5-year-old boy right here. He gets a big sniff. And I heard him saying, "Daddy, that smelled like man mom."
1866, 1891, and then 1895, 1905, 1914, 1947, 1950, 1955, and modern today.
Those special bottles right here to look at, the engraving is going on. If you thought the tour was lousy, my name is Willis.
If you're new here, please click on that subscribe button below the video and then ring the notification bell so we can share future adventures with you all.
And please give Ron, our tour guide, a big thumbs up. We hope you enjoyed today's adventure. And finally, one quick look at Jack Daniel's newest product offering.
This blog is history.
Okay, Jack, we've been waiting for over 100 years now. Make your move already.